Hey everyone, welcome back to Genai's World News. I'm Genai, and we've got a packed show for you today. Let's kick things off with a story that sounds like something straight out of a spy thriller. Both the BBC and the Financial Times are reporting that a U.S. Army soldier has been charged with insider trading, not on Wall Street, but on a prediction market platform called Polymarket. The soldier, identified as Gannon Ken Van Dyke, allegedly had access to classified information about a U.S. military operation targeting Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, and according to prosecutors, he used that inside knowledge to place bets on Maduro's removal from power. The result? He allegedly walked away with around $400,000 in profit. The Justice Department says Van Dyke was directly involved in planning the Venezuela operation, giving him advanced knowledge of events that the general public simply couldn't have anticipated. Polymarket, for those who don't know, is a platform where users bet real money on the outcome of real-world events, everything from elections to geopolitical shifts. It's legal in many places, but using classified government intelligence to gain an edge crosses a very serious legal and ethical line. This case is raising huge questions about how military personnel interact with these increasingly popular prediction markets, and whether tighter regulations are needed to prevent this kind of exploitation. It's a fascinating and deeply troubling intersection of national security and financial speculation. Charges are now filed, and we'll be watching this case closely. Moving now to Russia, where the Kremlin's stranglehold on the internet is tightening, and ordinary citizens are starting to push back. BBC News correspondent Steve Rosenberg reports that internet restrictions across Russia have become dramatically more severe, with countless websites, social media platforms, and messaging apps now blocked or severely slowed by government-imposed controls. And here's the part that really caught my attention. Russians themselves are drawing comparisons to Soviet-era censorship, the same kind of information blackout that the USSR was infamous for during the Cold War. According to the BBC's reporting, the digital blackouts are fueling growing public frustration. For many Russians, especially younger generations who grew up with open internet access, the restrictions feel like a fundamental rollback of personal freedom. VPN usage has surged as people scramble to get around the blocks, but even those tools are increasingly being targeted by authorities. The Kremlin's approach appears to be about more than just controlling the narrative around the war in Ukraine. It's about building what some analysts describe as a sovereign internet, a sealed-off digital ecosystem where information is tightly managed from above. The BBC's piece paints a vivid picture of a society where the gap between what the state tells you and what you can find out for yourself is growing wider by the day. And that gap, history tells us, tends to breed discontent. Now to a major moment in transatlantic relations. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has publicly cast doubt on whether the United States can still be considered a reliable defender of Europe, and those words are sending shockwaves through NATO capitals. As reported by the Financial Times, Tusk made the pointed remarks in the context of growing European anxiety about Washington's commitment to the continent's security. He's calling on EU member states to strengthen their own mutual defense clause, specifically Article 42.7 of the EU Treaty, rather than depending so heavily on American guarantees that now seem increasingly uncertain under the current U.S. administration. This is significant. Poland is one of NATO's most exposed frontline states, sharing a border with both Belarus and the Russian exclave of Kaliningrad. Warsaw has spent enormous sums ramping up its own military capabilities precisely because it understands what's at stake. So when Poland's leader, one of America's most committed European partners, openly questions U.S. loyalty, the rest of Europe is going to sit up and listen. Tusk's comments come alongside broader discussions about the EU's 7-year budget, where defense spending is becoming one of the most contested line items. The message from Warsaw is clear. Europe needs to be ready to defend itself, with or without Washington. Turning to the Middle East now, and some cautiously positive news out of a region that has seen far too little of it lately. The Financial Times reports that President Donald Trump has announced an extension of the Israel-Lebanon ceasefire by 3 weeks. Trump said both sides had agreed to the extended pause, which is being seen as a fragile but meaningful step toward longer-term stability along that border. But the announcement came with a striking warning. Trump declared that the U.S. Navy would, in his words, shoot and kill any vessel caught laying mines in the Strait of Hormuz. That's one of the world's most critical maritime choke points, through which a significant portion of global oil supplies pass every single day. It's a forceful statement, and one that underscores just how volatile the broader regional picture remains even as the Lebanon ceasefire holds. For now, the 3-week extension gives diplomats a bit more breathing room to work toward a more permanent arrangement. But with tensions involving Iran still simmering in the background, and with the Strait of Hormuz now explicitly in the crosshairs of U.S. military deterrence, the situation remains on a knife's edge. We'll keep you updated as this develops. From diplomacy to the digital battlefield, the White House has fired a major shot in the ongoing technology war with China. BBC News reports that a White House memo, authored by Michael Crackdown, is accusing Chinese companies of systematically stealing cutting-edge American artificial intelligence models through a process called distillation. In simple terms, distillation is when you use a powerful AI system's outputs to train a cheaper, smaller model, essentially reverse engineering it without paying for the original research or respecting intellectual property rights. The memo reportedly names firms primarily based in China as the main culprits, and it's framing this as a serious national security threat, not just a trade dispute. The concern is that if Chinese companies can freely harvest the capabilities of America's most advanced AI systems, the U.S. loses its technological edge in one of the most strategically important fields of the 21st century. This comes at a time when Washington is already pushing hard to restrict China's access to advanced semiconductors, the chips that power AI development. The BBC's reporting suggests this memo could be laying the groundwork for even tighter controls on AI exports and usage. The battle for artificial intelligence supremacy is very much a live geopolitical conflict, and this memo makes clear that the White House sees it that way too. Let's check in on global markets now, where the Bank of Japan has made a decision that's being closely watched by investors around the world. According to the Financial Times monetary